Hi, I'm Della, and I'm here to share my love of cross stitch with you. Cross stitch magazines in this video. I have the magazine Stoney Creek to share with you today, and I just have 2 issues of this magazine, so I'm going to share my whole collection with you in this video. And I don't go through the whole magazine like some people do. These are older issues of the magazine. This one is from February 2004. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the cover picture. They must have made a mistake in the magazine and they don't print a picture of the project anywhere in the magazine. So this is the only picture of the project. I think you can probably tell that that has more than just cross stitch in it, but other embroidery stitches. It's stitched in a light colored thread that is close to the color of the fabric. So it's really hard to see this design from a distance. It's a birth sampler and it has a phrase at the bottom, which is really meaningful and touching. It's a religious verse, so if you were going to do this project and this isn't what you want, you could put something else down here. Now, Stoney Creek publishes a lot of, or has published a lot of cross-stitch pamphlets and booklets of different patterns. They have a really sort of sentimental style. It's not too complicated to stitch, and so I think they are great projects for if you don't want to be too intimidated by what you're going to stitch. They have larger projects and they have smaller projects. I don't mean that there isn't anything challenging in their designs, but there are some publishers that tend to have designs that are more complicated, and Stoney Creek is kind of directed more to the regular person, I think. They get high marks from me also on their table of contents because they have pictures for all of their projects, and the pictures are a nice size. And I'm going to just zoom in, hold it in a little closer so that you can get a better feeling for all the projects. Here we go. So I'm just going to show you my 2 favorite designs in the magazine like I usually do. But first I thought I would tell you about some of the other parts of the magazine they have. They have a section with letters, including their editorial in the magazine, which is right here. I enjoy reading that part of the magazine. They also have a section called Spread the Word, which is about spreading the word of cross stitch and its benefits. And they just explain in this section that they had started that in 2000, and you could they have an address there where an email address, I guess, as well as a brick and mortar, like a postal address you could send a regular letter to tell how it had benefited you. And I made a video where I shared and read some of it to you, and then I got all emotional because one lady had a son in Iraq, and in 2004, things were pretty adventurous in Iraq. So I got to thinking about the implications of all of that. But cross stitch had been a benefit to her to be able to go and see her son. and have cross stitching be something to help her through all of that. They also have they have tips and hints, fabulous fabrics and fibers, stitch diagrams, and for the, if you have projects that have other stitches in them that you may not be familiar with, those are necessary to be able to do the design sometimes. With the internet, more and more you maybe don't have to rely on it, but it's nice to just have it in the magazine while you're stitching and not have to get online for everything. Although, I guess some people with their phones do get online for everything. I'm just not that person, so it never occurs to me. Anyhow, we're going to go to my favorite project, which is the birth sampler, which, again, we don't have a picture of here. Something to point out about the Stoney Creek magazine. The patterns are mainly in black and white. They do have some of the back stitching in color. I actually am a little frustrated with the design, with the pattern, because it will say, do flat diamonds with eyelets. But it doesn't show it to you right there. And what you are actually doing when you look here, that's this part of the design right here. And you can see that there's a flat diamond. And then next is the eyelet, which is different. And it alternates, flat diamond, eyelet, flat diamond. So yes, you can, I guess, just remember or look at the front of the magazine if you don't lose it. But I like a pattern that has it right in the pattern when I'm stitching. So I'm a little bit frustrated with that. On the other hand, I have a very nice diagram of how to do the flat diamond and the eyelet. They also include a love letter from Marilyn. So this is the lady who stitched the birth sampler. This is the grandson she stitched it for. And she goes through and just talks about her grandchildren. I guess in this family, his parents had already had a child that died. And so it was quite an experience for them to receive a birth sampler for their child and for her to stitch that for her grandchild after having a grandchild that died. This issue was just an emotional experience for me to read through that, and then the letter from the lady whose son was in Iraq. But anyhow, so they have an alphabet for personalization where you put the child's name. If you've ever done a sampler, then you have to kind of measure that out and plan it out a little bit. It's a nice alphabet. The phrase is from Psalms 139:14. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. I think it's really nice to have a birth sampler that's that unique, that has something that beautiful that it expresses, because whether you associate how you feel with religious sentiments like this or not, I think everybody is amazed at a baby when it's born and just in love with it. And that's a pretty exquisite way of expressing how beautiful they are. It has a place for the date and weight in the birth sampler, which is nice. Not all birth samplers allow that. And so it takes a few pages to provide you with the pattern. It's always nice when a pattern is on one page, but this isn't too bad. What's frustrating is when you have to skip to another part of the magazine, which I believe you might have to do here. I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to do it. I'm not finding it on another page, so yes, on page 54. So you have to go to page 54 which is not just a page later, it's a little farther to get more of the instructions on the burr sampler. They are nice and big, which is more important than that it's on a different page. As long as they do a good job, that's the main thing there. And then the other design in this magazine that I wanted to share with you is, they have a lot that are really cute, but I think I decided what I liked next best is on page 42. And when we go to page 42, you'll see they have made an afghan. So this is something that Stoney Creek did throughout that year of 2004. They would have provided you with patterns for the different buildings in the afghan. So if you wanted to stitch the whole afghan, you would need the other issues of the magazine, not just this issue. This only has 3 of the buildings. It has the barn, it has the farmhouse, which I think is this one here, and it has the church. So my favorite of those 3 is the barn. So they just have kind of a small picture of that and then the barn, but it is all on one page, which I think is nice. We'll go on in on the barn. So you can see that you don't have to put it in the afghan. You could just stitch the barn and frame it and hang it up. And since you do get 3 of the buildings in the magazine, you could stitch all 3 and hang them up, or just 2. I think the farmhouse and the barn go together nicely. So that is the February 2004 issue of Stoney Creek Cross Stitch. And the other issue that I have is from 2006. I just wanted you to see the lovely little fairy they have on the cover with her beautiful wings. I think those are some of the prettiest wings I've seen for a fairy in cross stitch. And that is my favorite design in this issue of the magazine. And here is their table of contents. Okay, and they have different features here. They still have their spread the word campaign, their letters, tips and hints, and stitch diagrams, and quite a few other things. They have something called For the Stash Collector, and this is something that I know people like, and that's all the neat little instruments that you can get. So a lot of these are probably pretty standard by now, since this is 17 years old. In fact, it might be older than some of the people out there cross stitching now if you started and you're young. So a lot of cute designs in this issue. You should have seen from the table of contents, and everybody has their style as to what is their favorite. And no, it was not easy to pick my favorite because I like a lot of them. But my favorite is the fairy. But actually, you saw the afghan, I think. There's a lot of beautiful designs in here. So the fairy is on page 44. And the picture in here is not all that big, but we'll just zoom in again. Doesn't really come through that clear when it's that small. The pattern is spread over various pages. Not my favorite thing, but that's just how it is. It's in black and white with the back stitching in color. You can see the main part of the design. And yeah, it takes several pages. The other, I think maybe this is just something that they do when the picture is on the cover, they don't put the picture in the magazine. So it's not a mistake they made, except that it's a mistake in my opinion. I think that they should still have a picture in the magazine for me to look at to see if I feel like what I'm stitching is coming out right or if I'm making a mistake. And that's something that I like that almost every other cross stitch magazine does. And I decided that this was the other design I wanted to show you. So we'll say my second favorite design. I really do like a lot of the designs in here. I wish that the way that my laptop recorded videos allowed me to talk to you while you looked at the picture. I tried to figure out how it worked exactly as a family tree. You do have the grandparents down here and the parents here, but then up here it got a little confusing. They have the last names of the people in the apples, which usually isn't necessary if you just have your children up here. But this must not just be their children then. So they have their children and their daughters and sons-in-law. But then the dates would make you think that they also have their grandchildren. But the way that they're organized is kind of hard to tell. Are there any unmarried people in there? And it's a little confusing. For myself, what I really like about it is that because there are so many places to put names in the apple section, I could make this for someone that has only one child. A lot of times with family trees, it looks a little unbalanced because it's designed for various children, but this is a place up here where you could just put one child here and then have a bunch of apples. If we're doing a family tree for someone who is a single parent and you didn't want to include, where you don't have the information on one of the parents, then you could just do a solid block here in the parent section and then the names of their children up here. Same thing down here with the grandparent section. If you're missing a name or you're just going to recognize one grandparent, you can. It's nicely designed in a way that you could do that. And so that's something that I like about this family tree. And now the names are really small. It just has room for a date, very simply done, like with numbers, not writing the months out. The design itself is pretty simple as trees go, but I have various family tree projects, and so I like having different ones to do and to try. There are those that are my favorite, but it is nice to have different designs for different situations when you have different family situations. I'd love to see one that allowed you to put in someone who'd been married more than once, so that's maybe really complicated and maybe people don't want that in a cross stitch. I don't know. I've never been married, so I'm not really sure exactly how that all works for people. But so yeah, I really liked that. They kind of explain it, I guess, up here. If you read what it says in the part above, it just says, it enables you to trace the apples back to their tree roots, to sets of grandparents, mom and dad. And You can use the apples solely to identify mom and dad's children, or you can include their spouses or perhaps even a grandchild or two. Yes, but then it's a little confusing for me, but that's why they did it like that. If your family doesn't fill all the apples on the tree, use the filled in apple. So anyway, I think it's nice. I like how it says our family. It's very nice. So those are my 2 Stoney Creek Cross Stitch magazines. I'm not sure how long they published their magazine, if they're still publishing it. So feel free to comment below what you know about Stoney Creek Cross Stitch magazine, or any comments you have about the designs in the magazine, if you have stitched or received any of these patterns, or if you want to just comment about cross stitch magazines or collecting cross stitch magazines. I would love to hear from you.